I said, why do you ask that question? He said, well, I figured if there was any money in writing, I would become a writer. I said, well, wait a minute, young man. I said, you were talking through it. I said, if you had a hat on, I'd say you were talking through it. I said, if you have musical ability, you become a musician. If you have scholarly ability, you become a professor. If you have medical ability, you become a doctor. If you have legal ability, you become a lawyer. I said, now if you can write, you can become a writer. I said, but knowing you only slightly, I have an idea that you couldn't write anything that anybody would want to read. So one of the students got up and said, why do you take that attitude? I said, well, I've been teaching at this institution for quite a while now, and I asked all my students to turn in a term paper, and I says, it's only 10 pages long, and they can't write 10 pages. They go clip pictures out of newspapers and put a picture on every other page, so that I get about 5 pages of text. I says, now you fellas can't write 10 pages in a term paper, how are you going to write books? I will never win a popularity contest because I'm honest with my students, and they don't appreciate that. I had a class at City University of New York where, although it was in the college, I found out that most of my students were reading on the 4th grade reading level. A 4th grade reading level in college. And I frankly told them that most of them seemed to have the brain capacity of a mentally retarded mule. So one young lady got up and told me that she demanded an apology. And I said, young lady, I will not apologize for telling the truth. Now, one of the reasons why you will listen to me tonight is because I'm not a member of the club. I think you might know what the club is. That's the Academic Racket Club. The way you work it is that you start out and you go through low school. They call that elementary school. That's low school. Then that takes up 8 years. Then you go 4 years of high school, and then 4 years as an undergraduate student in college. And if you're studying for a profession, you do 4 more years of graduate work in a university. Now, that's not what happened to me. I was not good in school. I was a student in a little school down in Aiken, South Carolina called the Schofield School, established in 1868 by Martha Schofield, old maid school mom from Quaker from Pennsylvania. And I went to the Schofield School, and it was a good school. I mean, it was the best school in the state, in Aiken, South Carolina, that colored people could go to. I don't know how good the white school was, but they gave them more money, so it might have been a little better. But I went to the Schofield School for several years, and I was a student there from during the First World War. I remember that I was a student in the Schofield School back during the years of 1915, 1916, 1917. This was the European War, and President Thomas Woodrow Wilson decided that the United States should go over to Europe and save democracy. Wilson said he was going to make the world safe for democracy. Wilson was born in Virginia, and he couldn't even make Virginia safe for democracy, but he was going to make the world safe for democracy. So he got into the war. But at any rate, I would be sitting in class, and since I was a fast reader, whatever the assignment was, I always read it way in advance, and I knew what was going to be covered. And therefore, while the teacher was telling the other students what the message was. I already had it. And I sat in the back of the class and read the newspapers about how the Germans and French were slaughtering up each other wholesale on the Western Front in France. And some of the students went home and told their parents that they had to sit there and listen to the teacher, and this little Jackson boy was sitting in the back of the room reading newspapers. So the teacher went to the principal and told him what the complaint was. So the principal says, Miss So-and-so, does this Jackson boy answer the right, when you ask him a question, does he give you the right answer? She says, yes, he jumps up and gives me the right answer, and then he sits down and started reading the newspaper again. He said, leave him alone. As long as he's getting the lesson, don't bother him. Oh, well, I found out that I got a bad press down there. I got up to the 7th grade, and my scholastic record was so good until the principal of the school came and said, Johnny, you're such a good scholar until we are going to skip you over the 7th grade and put you into the 8th grade. And I thanked him. A few days later, he comes in and he says, the parents of the children who are not being promoted over the 7th grade and the 8th grade have staged a protest. And they say that we shove you over the 7th grade into the 8th, they're going to pull all our students out of the school. So we'll have to insist on you going through the 7th grade. So I went through the 7th grade and then went into the school and handed in my resignation. I said I should have been finishing the 8th grade, but you wouldn't let me do it, so I quit. So but then I went to my father. He says, well, now that I dropped out at the end of the 7th grade, where do I go now? My father says, we're going over to Augusta, Georgia. There's a lady over there who's a great educator, Miss Lucy Laney, the Haynes Institute. Says, you got through the 7th grade, and I'm going to go over there and tell Miss Laney to put you in her high school. So I went to Augusta and put in 1 year at the Haynes Institute High School. And then I finished up the first year. And my mother told me, she says, boy, I don't think you're going to get a good education down here. I'm going to take you up to New York so that you can go to a good high school in New York and get yourself a good education. So my mother and myself came up to New York in 1922, and I got a job down in the Wall Street district. It didn't bring me any more money. I mean, everybody else in Wall Street was getting rich except me. But it was down in that section. So I would go to Stuyvesant High School in the morning. That's one of the best high schools in the whole country. I got an education at Stuyvesant High School between 1922 and 26 that's better than you can get in the average college today, because they had high standards back in those days. Now you can go through low school, high school, college, and university, get a PhD after your name and still be an idiot. In those days you couldn't do it. Now I've been asked to, now I haven't finished the story yet. I graduated from high school. Then I got a job working as a red cap. Some of you people probably don't know what a red cap is because we don't have many railroads around today. But red caps are people who dressed up in a uniform with a red cap, and they would carry bags to and from trains in railroad stations and try to live off the tips that the people give them. There's no salary to the job. You put on a uniform and work 10 hours a day and hope that you would make enough money to pay your rent and grocery bill. So I put in 10 hours a day red capping, and then attended night classes at the City College of New York. And I was so sleepy when I went to classes until I slept through all the lectures. And they managed to stand my society for 4 years. And then they told me that since I missed all the lectures and was giving all the wrong answers on the examination paper, that if I didn't improve, they were going to boot